Dementia is an umbrella term for a group of symptoms that's caused by disorders that affect the brain. These include devastating diseases like the most common form of dementia, Alzheimer's disease, and the lesser known forms of dementia like Lewy body dementia. Even strokes can cause dementia. More than 5 million people in the US alone are living with Alzheimer's, so there's a good chance you know someone who's affected by dementia. It can be very difficult to watch someone that you love deal with the symptoms, and these include memory loss and trouble with language, along with personality changes, delusions, agitation, and less ability to solve problems or control the emotions. It's important to note, although the dementia risk increases with age, it's not part of the normal aging process. It's certainly clear there's a lot of pain and suffering involved with Alzheimer's, and Alzheimer's drugs have consistently come up short when it comes to curing the disease. There's light at the end of the tunnel though. A recent small breakthrough published in the journal Aging found using a comprehensive, personalised approach, including diet and exercise, actually reversed the symptoms of Alzheimer's disease. The results were so robust and sustained that many of the participants were able to return to work. While comprehensive treatments are on the horizon, we can feel hopeful that integrative, personalised approaches can be a key to fighting the disease. In the meantime, it's important to take relatively simple steps to lower your risk of dementia before the disease has a chance to set in. According to a 2017 report published in The Lancet, approximately 35% of dementia cases could actually be delayed or even prevented if attention was given to 9 modifiable risk factors. These are less early education, midlife hypertension, obesity, hearing loss, depression in later life, diabetes, physical inactivity, smoking, and social isolation. In addition to addressing these 9 factors, we can take a look at some of the emerging ways to lower the risk based on research. You might already know avoiding processed foods, favouring a Mediterranean diet, and exercising lowers your risk of dementia. There's other relatively simple, meaningful steps that you can take to lower your risk. You need trace amounts of heavy metals like copper to survive, because copper is vital for bone, hormonal and nerve health. But too much of a good thing can be a bad thing for the brain. A 2013 study published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Science found that copper can trigger the onset of Alzheimer's, and it can fuel the disease. In fact, the study found that copper in drinking water at levels 1/10 of the water quality standards set by the Environmental Protection Agency caused a toxic accumulation of the pro-Alzheimer's protein amyloid beta. The researchers can't yet say the exact level of too much copper, but if you've copper water pipes, getting the water tested for excess copper is a good place to start. Drugs linked to dementia include common allergy and sleep medications, including popular medications like Benadryl, Dramamine, Advil, Unison, and others. These pills are known to have anticholinergic effects, something that researchers are increasingly linking to dementia. A 2016 study published in JAMA Neurology is unique as it used brain imaging to detect how the anticholinergic drugs impact the brain. By utilizing the MRI and PET scan imaging, the researchers were able to show how people who were taking anticholinergic drugs experience lower brain metabolism and higher brain atrophy. The participants taking the anticholinergic drugs also tested worse on memory tests. The University of Washington scientists also found the chronic use of certain anticholinergic sleep aids and hay fever medication increased a person's risk of dementia. The study only found the link for people taking the drugs for 3 or more years. You should find out if your drugs possess anticholinergic properties. Aside from older allergy drugs and some sleep medication, certain antidepressants, COPD and asthma medication, along with drugs for an overactive bladder, also could. If they do, find a safer option that's available. Learning to use essential oils for allergies could help ease your symptoms. A 2010 study published in the Journal of Ethnopharmacology suggests that peppermint oil acts as a relaxant, and it exhibits antispasmodic activity. It inhibits the contractions that cause you to cough. Sleep positions matter. Most people and wild animals sleep on their sides. Now we might better understand the brain-friendly reason for this. In 2015, researchers found sleeping on your side can improve one of the brain's waste-clearing processes, and this lowers the risk of neurological diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. The link between certain types of dementia and sleep is well established. A recent study took a closer look at how the way you sleep impacts the drainage of harmful substances in the brain. The Journal of Neuroscience study found the brain's glymphatic pathway, a complex system that clears waste and other harmful chemicals from the brain, worked optimally when people slept on their sides, as opposed to their belly or their back. Similar to how the body's lymphatic system clears waste from the organs, the glymphatic pathway is responsible for filtering the cerebrospinal fluid through the brain and exchanging it with interstitial fluid to clear the waste like amyloid beta and tau proteins, chemicals that can negatively affect the brain processes if they build up. It's increasingly clear that dementia isn't solely a genetic issue and that environmental triggers are often present. Such is the case with DDT, the insecticide once thought to be safe but later banned in the 70s. Research led by the National Institute of Environmental Health Science shows that people with higher levels of DDT in their blood are much more likely to be diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. People with Alzheimer's had, on average, 3.8 times higher levels of DDE and DDT breakdown products in their blood compared to people who didn't have Alzheimer's disease. DDT is considered a legacy polluter because, although banned, it persists in the environment for decades. Luckily, levels of DDT and its breakdown products in the human body are slowly dropping, although today you're most likely to be exposed through food sources higher in the food chain. Animal and fatty foods contain the highest levels of DDT and breakdown products because it's stored in the fat and it increases in concentrations as it moves up the food chain. As for chemicals currently in use, we don't necessarily know the long-term impact they're having on our brains. Emerging research suggests many of the approved pesticides are having brain-damaging effects. For instance, a 2015 study found people who ingested food that was treated with a neonicotinoid insecticide complained of symptoms like memory loss, finger tremors and headache, among other things. Certain neonicotinoid insecticides are also blamed for the unprecedented die-off of the bees and bats. To avoid the 12 most pesticide-laced foods, always buy organic versions. Research from Rush University Medical Center uncovered an interesting connection between a person's sense of purpose and their dementia risk. Study participants who reported the highest scores on the Life Purpose Test were 2.4 times less likely to develop Alzheimer's compared to people with the lowest scores. Living a life of purpose, as defined by the study, involved things like having a sense of direction and purpose in life, and feeling good when thinking about past accomplishments, and hope for things to accomplish in the future. This means find something that makes you happy. It could even be volunteering or learning how to play an instrument. Stick with it, and it can do wonders for your brain. As an interesting side note, correct forward head posture is scientifically proven to make you happier, so consider fixing faulty posture while you're also at it. In 2015, UK researchers published a study in Neurology suggesting that people severely vitamin D deficient face a 122% increased risk of dementia. Those who were just deficient, less than 20 nanograms per milliliter experienced a 51% higher risk of all-cause dementia. To figure out your baseline vitamin D levels, ask your doctor for a 5-hydroxy vitamin D blood test, and be sure to get the actual test number. Your test might come back as normal if it's above 30 nanograms per milliliter, but the truth is many functional medical doctors and researchers believe a minimum of 60 to 80 nanograms per milliliter is needed to prevent health problems. Taking care of your teeth and gums also helps to protect your brain. A large study investigating the dental habits of about 5,500 older people over an 18-year period found a strong link between the people with poor oral hygiene and the development of Alzheimer's disease. Those who reported brushing their teeth less than once per day were up to 65% more likely to develop dementia compared to people who brushed twice a day. Gum disease bacteria can find its way to the brain, and it can set off inflammatory processes that cause brain damage. In addition to brushing your teeth, the Ayurvedic practice of oil pulling with coconut oil can also improve the oral health. A 2017 study analysed vascular cognitive impairment, the second most common form of dementia worldwide, and how exercise affects patients. Generally, in brain scan studies, people with vascular cognitive impairment showed increased neural activity in parts of their brain that was involved with memory, decision-making, and attention. This means their brains had to work harder than healthier brains. To see if exercising could help the brain work less, the researchers recruited 38 older people who'd been diagnosed with mild, early form of vascular cognitive impairment. None exercised at the time. The researchers measured the participants' brain activity and then began the exercise regime. 3 supervised 1-hour sessions a week. The supervisors instructed the participants to move briskly enough to raise their heart rate to about 65% of their maximum capacity. By the end of the study, the walkers generally had lower blood pressure than the control group, and their brains were working differently. The walkers' brains showed less activity in the portions of the brain required for attention and rapid decision-making. A 2018 study further confirmed this by examining if cardiovascular fitness in middle-aged women decreased dementia risk. The study examined Swedish women aged 38 to 60, and it revealed the women who participated in high fitness delayed dementia by at least 5 years compared to those who participated in medium fitness. The findings concluded that overall participation in cardiovascular health can assist with preventing dementia. As scientists continue to study this family of diseases, it's clear certain factors impact a person's risk of dementia. Some of these cannot be avoided, like getting older. However, the great news is many potential causes of dementia can be avoided. The most well-known risk factors of dementia are age. The older you are, the greater the risk for developing a form of dementia. Alcohol. Drinking moderate amounts of alcohol can protect you from dementia, but excessive drinking over a long period of time actually increases your risk. Atherosclerosis. When fats and cholesterol accumulate in the arteries and inflammation thickens your blood vessel walls, your brain isn't able to receive the blood that it needs. Having high, bad LDL cholesterol levels and having type 2 diabetes. Other risk factors are Down syndrome, genetics, hypertension, depression, smoking, less early life education, obesity, hearing loss, physical inactivity, and social isolation. Dementia doesn't happen overnight, and it's characterized by gradual changes and damage in the brain. Whether it comes on suddenly with a stroke or more slowly over time with atherosclerosis, vascular dementia occurs when the brain isn't getting enough blood and oxygen. This causes the brain cells to die. The most common type of dementia, Alzheimer's, affects the cerebral cortex and is characterized by plaques and tangles, and this results in the loss of brain cells and the ensuing brain shrinkage. Neurotransmitter chemicals lose their ability to healthily relay the messages between the brain cells in this form of dementia. An autopsy found the brain of the late actor Robin Williams was afflicted with Lewy body dementia. This condition is characterized by small circular lumps of protein that develop inside the brain. There's still much we don't know about this disease, but it's possible it impacts the chemical messenger dopamine and acetylcholine. Frontotemporal dementia is a type of dementia characterized by damage and shrinkage in the temporal and frontal lobes. It's a more common type of dementia in people younger than 65. About 20% of cases have an inherited genetic mutation from their parents. The following triggers of dementia or dementia-like symptoms are considered treatable, or at the very least, they don't progress like traditional forms of dementia. Depression, brain tumors, head injury, vitamin B deficiency, infections like encephalitis or HIV, and thyroid hormone deficiency. Dementia is an umbrella term for a group of cognitive disorders typically characterized by memory impairment, difficulty with language, problem with object recognition, motor activity difficulties, and problems planning and organizing. Alzheimer's disease is the most common type of dementia, and it accounts for 60 to 80% of dementia cases. Dementia is a general term for loss of memory and other mental abilities, severe enough to interfere with the daily life. It's caused by physical changes in the brain. Around the world, more than 44 million people have Alzheimer's or related dementia. Dementia is not only a public health crisis, but an economic one too. Today, Alzheimer's alone costs the US economy $226 billion. If nothing's done to slow down the disease, the Alzheimer's could pose a real threat to the economy, potentially bankrupting Medicare. If the number of people living with Alzheimer's hits 16 million by 2050, as is predicted, it could cost the US economy $1.1 trillion. We know that while some causes of dementia are genetic, lifestyle factors play a large role. This is great news because the more control and action you take, the more you can prevent the symptoms. You can follow a more Mediterranean diet. Exercise regularly, at least 150 minutes per week. Filter excess copper from your water. Find a purpose in life. Practice good oral hygiene. Avoid unnecessary drugs linked to dementia. Sleep on your side. Eat lots of organic produce. Maintain healthy vitamin D levels. Address education, midlife hypertension, obesity, hearing loss, depression, diabetes, physical inactivity, smoking, and social isolation. To learn more about Alzheimer's and dementia, to book a consultation, or to learn about herbs, supplements, and natural treatments, check out my website.